trying to just support it in your notch.
Yeah.
Because if you can maintain proper control of the club in the trail hand notch, that gives you maximum stability for the handle, but what relates to the face positioning throughout the swing.
I think the big things we just really want you to take away from today is just getting the claws with the proper wrist and finger extension and the curl, the fingertips. And then once you're aware of like what's activated, then you can understand how to concentrate what's being activated. Once you get that like locked in, you just maintain that. Like,
Yeah, that's
we talk about the bird
I mean,
cage.
seriously, this is the secret, people.
Yes. Understand that the golf swing is 90% hands and arms. It used to be like back in the 20s and 30s with Harry Vardon and Henry Cotton and all these guys. They were saying that it was 90% hands and arms. Where did that get lost? Like, why? Why did we lose that? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Cause and Effect podcast, where we introduce the cause and effect relationships that exist in golf in relation to the hand to handle to club relationships. Episode 33.
Yeah.
Threes are wild.
Turned 33 last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were just sitting here like, are we really 33 episodes in? So
Yeah.
can't believe people are still watching and listening. So appreciate everybody's support we've been getting. As always, you're the reason we're able to do all this. If you got your compact club, go ahead and grab it, because we got a really fun segment today where we're just picking one topic and just really attacking it. We feel like we've been kind of jumping all over the place. And really what's going to start us off today is just talking about the benefits of getting the proper placement of your trail hand on the club. And we're going to talk about like the secrets that nobody's really ever talked about in golf instruction of why tour players are so conscious of how well they connect that trail hand to the club properly, and the benefits of it. And our winner of the week, we're actually going to steal from another tour this week and grab the Live Tour, because Taylor Gooch played out of his mind.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
really
back-to-back,
cool to see.
Yeah, back-to-back 62s, just played incredible. And Liv really did a good job with Adelaide. Yeah, it was fun to watch. So yeah, we're going to talk about two things that you can just steal from him that will help your game a ton. So that's going to be really the theme of the episode. And then from there, we're just going to extrapolate off that and talk about more of how to concentrate your pressure against the handle, the benefits of it with tempo, balance, things like that. And then, of course, end it with our Super Stroke putter grips. Shout out Super Stroke, podcast sponsor. And yeah, we're pumped. It's going to be a really good episode. We got terrible weather here in Michigan again.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. We got like a little tease of weather where maybe that was like all we're going to see of summer. It's just those 4 days.
It'll come. It's just,
it'll come. But we haven't really got to teach much because the weather's just been so crap. So
Thursday.
we're going to hopefully do Thursday and shoot some content. And I think it'd be really cool for everybody to see like our students are getting better using everything we're talking about. They're getting better talking about the trail hand.
Right.
That was a big thing I talked about with one of my students. Yeah, shout out Terry. It was a great lesson, but his big thing is his trail hand was so like on top of the club. So I told him like, you got to get that like pinch or that notch more aligned at like the trail shoulder. So let's just jump right into it. Like Taylor Gooch does an incredible job with these two things, and really like what are they and what can people like take from it? So let's do it.
All right. So he has perfect pinches. Like his trail hand pinch is like phenomenal. And that's going to be the biggest thing along with your trail foot movement throughout this episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the theme. So, like when we look at tour players, like some guys might not have the lead hand perfect,
right,
like Spieth and guys like that, but the trail hand is money.
It has to work. It has to, because we're playing a sideways sport. And if you think about it, like your trail hand is always, it's like always the pusher from the side for any type of like thing you do from the side, which is why they use the analogy sometimes of skipping a stone, right? It's like when you skip a stone, you have to hold your external of your trail hand and arm and then use your most, dominant hand, right?
Exactly.
So with Taylor Gooch, though, it's like perfect pinch with his lead hand, neutral to strong. I'd say we talk about 12 o'clock being thumb on top like this, and we're going to turn it to like I'd say 2 o'clock position.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then trail hand, though, phenomenal. He's at the 230 position with his notch. When you think about what Gooch really does great, though, he gets his, grip perfect, really nice extension of his arms. We're talking about later about like grip pressure. And, you look at his arms and they look very locked, right?
Yes.
Which they are. But it's not like an idea of like he's squeezing like at a 10 with his arms themselves, like getting tense up into his rotator cuffs and like shoulders, right? It's like he's keeping the pressure concentrated in the grip, in the arms. And on a scale from 1 to 10, I would think that most of these guys are really less than probably a 3.
Yeah, agreed.
On the grip scale of 1 to 10, right?
They might lock in a 10.
You lock in, and then when he goes back, it looks so like in a sense rigid. But as we know, that once you get your claws locked on, you don't have to try to like apply a lot of like pressure against the club when you push and you twist and you hinge. Like you can just maintain the formation that you've created, that establishment of pressure, and then just maintain it throughout the swing. And then when you look at Gooch too, the second thing is trail foot. So this is the common theme that we have been seeing amongst the pros that we've been analyzing, is that their trail heel is more on the ground at impact, when they strike the ball.
Exactly.
And then some guys, it comes up just after, maybe post-impact. But interesting with Taylor Gooch, when his lead arm is back parallel to the ground here in his half follow through, the club's like, we have that 90-degree angle, we'll say. His trail heel is actually still on the ground, like the inner part of it. He's just rolled to the inner part of the lead foot.
And what's the advantage of that? Like we've talked about it a lot before with like helping the gear effect at the bottom. It's like, what can people like actually take away from that?
So there's really two things that match up here, is how the trail wrist stays cupped and the trail arm goes from bent straight from pre-impact to post, but how the trail heel movement basically affects that. So when the trail heel stays more down, let's say this, you're going to start with your feet and knees and your lower body is going to start to like twist open. That's going to make the like the lag that we have here at pre-impact want to close and go left, right? So the idea is that the trail arm and hand from this position at pre-impact, we get the, we'll say close to, max external,
like palm to the sky.
Exactly. And from there, we're just going to allow the trail arm to go from bent to straight, like down, out, and away from our chest, like this. And that right there is what allows the shoulders to kind of stay in tilt, but also to control like the release of the lag, because the lag, again, is going left like this naturally. Okay. And as soon as you start to twist your lower body, it goes more. So your job then is to just drive this trail hand arm down, out, and away. Let the, I'll say the notches, the connection between the inner thumbs and the index fingers, work down and around the palms. And then we get to our proper post-impact position. Everything's locked. We have proper face control to the target. The face isn't too closed. It's not too open. And you can hit, then you're like maximizing your, height, trajectory, curvature. Right?
So really, like when we talk about like the club wanting to kick left, if the trail hand is on the trail side of the club,
like
that's what's allowing you to kind of counter that. So you really got to be like on the side, like skipping that stone, like you're saying,
for sure,
to support. Because if you're coming through and that thing kicks left, and then your trail hand's on top, whoop, now it's going even more left and closing.
And for our viewers, we promote the strong grip the most, right? And this gear effect idea and influence we're talking about is like the key of importance to maximizing your control of direction and distance. Because if you give in too much to this and don't control the pressures going down, out, and away, like trail arm going from bent straight, then the natural gear effect of the golf club is going to naturally be closing, and your misses are going to be a little bit too let's say like hooky in a sense, or like you might be hitting thin or a little heavy. But the idea is just like, then you realize how open you have to get the face, and then control driving down, out, and away properly from the body. And then from there, then here at post impact, we have the perfect face angle, which is again, what all also tour players in a sense just share in common. Okay. But when again, they get there, we feel that it's the trail hand pinch, number one, with a great hand position on the club. And then from there, allowing the trail heel to properly work from pre to post
Because
impact.
if that trail heel came up, then that's disrupting like your body staying in tilt, your butt might move in too much, your head might drop back too much. Like that trail foot controls a lot.
For sure.
And it really disrupts. Like, so that's why tour players, I think, do such a good job of keeping that trail foot back, because they're like, why would I have something disrupting how well I'm using my trail wrist and trail arm?
Right.
Like, this is the magic move. Why bring something into the equation that disrupts the magic move?
And here's something maybe for the viewers to think about is, it's like understanding that really from pre to post impact, it's like you have to make sure that your trail toe to heel stay on the ground, just tilted, and then allow that trail arm to go from bent to straight. at post impact. And those are like the two things that you really ultimately have to just do. And you should be focused on like the most in your game from wedge to driver, honestly.
Exactly.
And then we can help to build the lead hand into it a little bit more and stuff. But these are the common trends. We're just trying to kind of like focus more on those right now with the podcast to get our viewers to like,
just
more
really
intrigued.
understand
like, what do I really need to do?
Yeah, like we don't need to be worrying about like a lot of things. Like if you just had a day on the range or a day in your chair with your compact club and you're like, okay, what am I going to work on today? It's understanding how this trail hand pinch between thumb and forefinger and how well it's placed on the trail side of the club determines how good you're going to be able to control like this top edge and like the toe. Like let's talk about that a little bit. Like kind of getting off of Gooch now and just getting into more of this trail hand because I really am like obsessed with this right now. So when we get this proper like placement, like let's talk about like maybe how people can get this placement better. We talk about like why it's important, but how can people do this just like sitting at home, maybe with a compact club or just like on the range, but just where is it going to be placed relative to the knuckle pads? Where is the pinch? Like, let's really get into that.
Sure.
Just so we can actually like show the viewers.
Right. So when we look at like the trail hand, so we have like our pinky pad and then we have the index pad and we have the notch. So the notch is this connection between the inner part of the thumb and the inner part of the index finger. That allows that index pad to be aligned against the handle of the club.
And
so
the
it's
club
like
just sits right in there.
this. Okay, like this is connection point number one. Now, when you look at different styles of grip, some people with a weak grip would go up more in the palm. We talk about going over the pinky pad like this in a sense, okay? So with both hands, they're actually aligned in that formation, just in different positioning.
Correct.
Because lead hand is more on top like this, trail hand's more on the underside of the trail side of the club.
Got it.
So, but the idea though is that you have to get this placement. And the key thing from that is just, again, developing the proper notch. Get the proper pinches here in between the thumbs and the index fingers. Then from there, if we get that, hold the fingers and arms and everything straight away from the trail shoulder, we'll say, and then flex the fingers and the wrist back to 45 degrees like that. For me to grip my club properly, which is going to be like this,
it's gonna be tough.
I'm just going to go underneath like this with Max Allner keeping the angle. And then from there, it's like I can place my trail palm against either just the side of the handle like this, or if the lead hand's on there, you're going to go trail palm to lead thumb. And then from there, you can see the trail index pad here is applying pressure against like the side of the club. And then the curls wrap around and you just establish that notch right here with that. So it's like the inner pressure again between the trail hand thumb and the index finger and making sure that it's like inside the V, kind of like this, like where I could like literally pinch the club. It's hard to do it.
Right.
Because it's heavy, but it's like trying to just support it in your notch. Because if you can maintain proper control of the club in the trail hand notch, that gives you maximum stability for the handle, but what relates to the face positioning throughout the swing.
How does it relate to the face?
Because this point here, the out, like the end of like, or the top parts of your index finger and your thumb are the closest point to the club head. So again, because they're down the grip further, right? It's like they have like the ultimate control. That's why they say like the trail index finger here has the most control because it technically does, but it works in unison with the notch and the pinch, right? So when you talk about like extending it down the club like this, that ultimately will give you more downward pressure like that if need be. But we like to get it more like the index finger to not be too separated away from the middle finger. So it's like when you look at it from your viewer standpoint, instead of being like this, we want to keep that more closely connected. And the reason why is that then your hands can work together in unison the best. Sometimes if you separate that index finger, you're going to start having problems with your trail hand kind of sliding away or maybe not staying connected as much. It's easier to use like the trail hand curl to press back and into your notch basically with the pressure against the handle. So it's like this is curling back, trail hand pinch, and then from there we are good to go.
And then grip pressure wise, like when we're talking about getting the wrist extension and things like that. When you get that wrist extension, the big key is being able to like push against the grip with those pads and being able to like align them on the side of the handle properly. But when you're doing that, you're really pushing with that trail palm against the lead thumb knuckle. That's where you're kind of creating that connection point. But really the pressure is more of like on the side with those pads, right?
Yeah.
And against the lead thumb knuckle, obviously.
So
right?
we'll just walk you through the claw, like kind of grip pressure thing that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So just like we talked about earlier, pinky pad and notch positioning on the club. Lead hand, trying to get the fingerprint of the lead thumb basically at the 230 position opposed to 3 o'clock being here, like straight on the side of the club. Okay. So we get that. Then from trail hand position, we're going to go trail palm to lead thumb. You have the trail pinky pad basically pressing like against the side, the more bottom part of the club, just because of how it's positioned. And then from there, we have trail index pad, like we talk about, if we get that proper notch with the trail hand, with the thumb and the index finger placement. Okay. So from here, once you get your claws perfect, I'm kneeing my bed here just a little, sorry. Okay, now we're good.
Like
now from here, I'm just going to maintain the everything that I've just activated with like the proper finger and hand extension, like creating your claws, right? Maintain the claw formation and positioning, and then just squeeze to like a 10, like as hard as you can. Not like trying to like manipulate your elbows like this, like maintain the concentrated pressure with your claws and just press against the club as tight as you can.
And when you're doing that right there with the 10, where are you concentrating the pressure?
It's all like pressing like my knuckle pads against the club. So I'm basically taking my curls and pulling them back against my pinky pads and my notches.
Love it.
So it's like, that's what I'm pushing against. So it's like, once I have a support group, like if I was just an extension, I pushed, it's like, yeah, I can get a certain amount of energy. But as soon as I have my curls, then from there, it's like, now I have something to really pull against. And it's like, you naturally feel the club head kind of coming back, because when you activate like your pinky pad to your index pad, it naturally creates like radial deviation, radial deviation, which is like the up and down like this movements of the wrist, right?
Yep. But yeah, so I like that. So once you get that 10 and you really sink those claws into the grip, then from there, you just let off.
You go to like a 0.
Yeah.
And just maintain this formation. And then that way in the swing, you have the ability to use your hands to where you're not too rigid and too tight. And from there, again, it makes it easier to like lever, lag, and release the club. It's going to help you with your tempo. And
that's what
like,
I want to get into.
Yeah, because the tempo, like people.
Your tempo is so good. Like,
because I just push.
Yeah. See, like for me, and I've been working on this, and the Combat Club has helped me so much. Like, I mean, I love this thing. I'm obsessed with it. But I think I'm as obsessed with this as you are with Lagshot.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
I love Lagshot too, but this thing is like my savior right now. But I work on it every day, where I'm just sitting in my office and I'm just pushing against it, and it's helped me so much. And when we played that first round, it was like I started off so tight at first.
Right.
But then once I let up, and just once you understand, like, you don't have, like, it's not going to fly out of your hands. Like, just get the proper like connection to it, and then just trust that.
Yep. Finger extension with the notches, and then just curl.
Yeah.
And then you get the rotation, put it on the club.
I need that
both
harmonious
hands,
tempo like you.
and then from there, just maintain that formation. Basically, like you can feel it in your claws, like when you address the ball, like on a lie or whatever.
Yeah.
You can kind of feel like where the face is, everything. You do a couple little waggles, kind of get everything molded in there.
Your bed.
And then from there, it's like, you can feel where you need to be, and then just maintain that constant pressure. No additive like flickings or like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no abrupt movements. You just lever the club head back, your pinky pads and notches, and basically from there, then you can just get the proper, you just push against the handle in the proper way, control the heel to the toe of the face at impact, and then we get proper lever and lag and release for every shot in golf.
So you mentioned something there that I think is really important, is that you can never change like the intensity of your grip pressure. Like if you start at a 0 or 1 or 2, it's got to stay at a 0.
It's like if you start humming, like in your, like before you take the club back, like you're just like, if you just go, and then you're like, like, it's like, no.
It's like, whoa.
Like you have to try to keep that constant like humming noise like throughout the entire swing. Like remember Ernie Els said he would say his name, like first name in the backswing, and then follow through was the last name.
Right.
And but it wasn't like Ernie Els. It's like Ernie Els.
Right.
And that's something cool that like viewers can like use to help you with your tempo, is just trying to, again, like always use some type of a tempo system.
So that's what I notice when you look at like these tour players, like you said, it looks like they're gripping it really tight, but they're just so concentrated with their pressure.
Right.
Like they're so, like if you understood, like if we talk about like the laser beam shooting through like the pads, and they're like shooting through the grip in a particular way, they're just so concentrated with that. Like they're never off with that.
Right.
So from there, they're able to just maintain that same pressure back and through, which is why tour players look like they're just so effortless with their swing.
Well,
because they are.
The thing is, though, too, here's something also like a little understanding more so of like benefits of claws is that when you look at your fingers and you have like the tips of your fingers and it goes down, then you have like your first joint, second joint, you have your knuckle pads, you have your palms, right? When you activate every single little tendon and ligament, it locks or isolates a certain part of your arms. So like if I go like this and turn my lead hand over and go down 45, like this right here to you would look really like high pressure, like, you know, strenuous in a sense. I have zero. All I'm doing is isolate my fingertips with my claws. All the pressure is actually here. Like this is an effect.
So like the pressure is more with your palm. Like right here we talk about palm pressure.
Yeah, it's like the pressure, like the it's like if you had laser beam shooting out of here, that's where the majority. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the claw ball.
So it's like, yeah. So
by
like
the way, this is our next training aid. This thing we've been doing a lot of research with it, a lot of testing with it. This is the next training aid for claw.
And the
Jonathan's created like a whole system with it. But sorry, I just had to jump in there with that.
No, it's cool because like I mean,
we love this.
The thing with this is that it teaches you to go basically wrist to wrist like this and lock your arms. Now, from there, if each hand arm are in the same position, right, in a sense, like just opposites, you can apply like the most direct amount of pressure and understand like the pressure being applied from your pinky pads to your index pads. And because it's going to be a perfect sized sphere and it's going to be a little bit softer than, you know, like this like hard plastic mold that we have, just prototype. But it's like from here, we can just lock in. Now I'm at like a 0. And then from there, we can condition throughout the swing what we're going to do. And we have ways that we're going to like weight this. We have attachments. Like it's really going to be cool. And honestly, in my opinion, it's probably going to be the best training aid almost ever in golf because it's just going to be so beneficial with understanding a sphere that fits in your hands. Because when you look at the cylinder of the golf club, it's almost like you're putting it on there. But because of the difference in size, we're going strong because the cylinder's smaller. And honestly, if we get the hands more over on the trail side of the club with the gear effect that we talk about with this lever lag release, it's like this is going to maximize the speed for a smaller cylinder in a sense.
If you take the club ball and you hold it like this and you push against the lead side of it, how you're pushing against it,
it's a bigger firm placement against an object.
Now you just take what you just trained with that lead hand pushing against the sphere and just align it to the handle in the proper way. But you're not changing anything. The way you push against this is the same way you're going to push against the cylinder. It's just it's more concentrated, which is why the claws are so important because it gives you the awareness of where those pads are, so you can, like we said, push against the cylinder or like handle properly. So that's why we love this though, because it just makes sense. Like to push against a sphere makes sense. To push against a cylinder is kind of hard to understand.
It's actually harder to understand. Yeah.
Because when people see this, they're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to grab it. It's like, no, because then that's when you start grabbing too hard and then getting too much tension in your wrists and forearms. And I did that good post that we posted this week on grip pressure and related to the pads being more like on the side of the handle opposed to being more on top of the handle. So this is a big thing, and we talk about this a lot with claw ball, is that if you don't get your wrists and fingers in full extension, you don't even have the ability to push against the handle to begin with.
Right. Yeah, you have to create this to get the curls.
Yes.
And then from there, again, you're just like positioning them with what we talk about with like rotation and ulnar to basically go down with the golf club to where you need to be.
Correct.
And it was funny when you were just talking about that, something came to mind was just like throwing a football. They make footballs with laces. And most people, they like, I mean, I went a long time as a kid and never really truly understood like exactly the importance of that. But when you throw a ball, like your placement of your curls of your claws is important and it needs to be in a certain position to create the proper spiral. Like, you know, and it's like, but it's like on a grip though, on a golf grip like this, we don't have that though, in a sense. We have the tour wrap grips, which are kind of, they have like more of a seam. That's kind of why I like it.
Yeah.
Because it like formates to my claws. I can like feel like opposed to like a flat circular, like, you know, surface, right?
Something like more like kind of surface area for you to push against. That's why we like the super speed squeeze that we did in our grip pressure video coming up. That should be releasing by the end of the week. But yeah, it's just that area to push against with your pads, and
Right.
the importance of that, like we said, for tempo, because once you get that like locked in, you just maintain that. Like
Yeah,
we talk about the bird
I mean, seriously,
cage.
this is the secret, people. And
Yes.
your grip, like as far as your hands, it's common that if you are too tight with your grip pressure and you have a strong grip, commonly on the inner part of like your pinky and top side of like your lead hand index finger, that will start to rub, and then you'll start getting the bad blisters. And even on the inside of your lead hand index finger too, you'll start getting that pinky rubbing in there, because again, if you're too tight, you can't control the gear effect properly, and the face is closing on you, and it's like wrenching your wrist and your back. So again, very important we concentrate this pressure, activate it properly, lever lag and release it.
This is why I feel like Lagshot is one of the best training aids on the market right now, because you can't like swing that with tight grip pressure. It's very difficult because it's just kicking like in all these different ways, and you're just like, I can't. It's like it has like a mind of its own. So it's almost like if you want to control the Lagshot to perfection, then you have to really understand like how to use your claws and be educated. You have to be educated with your claws,
right?
Because if you aren't,
more weight, more whippiness, you have no control. This is why, literally for myself, I'm going to play like a few holes of golf with the 3, and I can't wait for the putter coming out. Like if we ever get there to that point with it, because I think they should.
They said they were going to do something. I saw on their social media.
Because it makes sense. Like, but the genius behind it is that, if you have perfect claws and you can control the Lagshot perfectly in your game, like literally you'll step up to your normal club and it's already ingrained with like what needs to happen with like the flow, the tempo. Maybe then most people might actually decide to go to slightly heavier clubs even, and maybe a little whippier shafts. I mean, maybe I don't know.
Grip.
Like whatever. I'm just saying though, like, but it makes more sense of like whatever works for you to get that is going to actually escalate your game like so much.
Correct.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And I'm nervous to play you in a competition. Because
I think I could shoot par with it for like 3 holes at least. I mean, honestly, I'll putt with the driver and we'll see how it goes.
Oh man,
but
we'll get the putter soon. But yeah, we're gonna do like a cool competition where Jonathan and I go against each other. And yeah, we're gonna see how well we do, because we've seen people do this before, but I feel like we could do pretty good.
Oh yeah,
I feel like you definitely because
the short game's going to take some work to practice it, but that's another thing too that I love about it is that honestly, if you can control that heaviness and that whip in the shortest form to understand the gear effect of like what the club does in the small swings, where like if you just go back like 5-6 inches like this, and then you lag, and then you thump the ground, it's like there's a little whip there, like with what would happen with the 54 degree, right? That they offer. Too. So it's like you have to thump and you have to control the length of the swing really well, which again, you can't do it if you don't have the proper claws.
Exactly.
So it's like, but if you get that and you realize that, like this is literally like the perfect combo for a training on the market that works great with what we're preaching, because it can change your game. Yeah, play really golf, and like if you are like out by yourself or with a few friends or something, and there's like no one behind you, just take it out and hit a shot with it on the course and just like try it out. Because honestly, I can guarantee you that if you do it right, you'll hit it further than your normal 7-iron, 54 or driver.
Yeah, we're kind of particular with like who we work with, because it's hard to find brands that kind of like align with like what we like think and believe and know with all of our lessons. And I mean, we're really selective. I mean, Super Stroke, I mean, we think they make the best grips out of anybody.
Sure.
Whether it's putter, whether it's full swing or full clubs. I mean, and then the Lagshot is just, it's really good because like we said, you can hit balls with it.
Right.
So it's just, that's probably one of the biggest things. Like when I swung the Medicus, it was if you messed it up by like a little bit, it would just like break. And it's like,
well, and the
Medicus, can't even hit a ball with
the Medicus had certain weird variables of why it would break. So it's like, because there's like tour players, not everyone's going to be doing that perfect. Correct. But what I love about also Lagshot is that it's again because of the weight added and then the whippiness of the shaft, it forces you to concentrate your pressures against the handle to utilize the train aid. And because we have claws, and that's what we teach, it's like this is literally working to perfection, because this is what we needed.
Yes.
Like for a train aid for, our people and for ourselves. Eventually, I mean, because it's like the heavier and whippier it is, it forces you to instinctively focus in on what you're doing with your hands and arms more, and the tempo you should be moving at. But then if you understand with what we're showing you too with it, of the parameters that you need to go in your backswing and then follow through with it, it's like, it's the same exact thing as the real swing. And then that's going to be really easy to understand.
Exactly. And this stems into putting too. Like we talk a lot about like with getting the proper kind of grip pressure and things like that. And we've talked about like where it's placed in the hands and things like that. But like, what are the most common faults that we're seeing kind of people make when it comes to like getting the club in the hand like properly with the putter? Like, is it the alligator arms? Is it grip pressure? Maybe like for me, that was my big thing, right? Like my grip pressure is way too tight with putting, right? And maybe having like a better grip this year will help me because I haven't had a really good putter grip before. So having a super stroke putter grip will be helpful. But it's just really getting an understanding of like, you have to understand where you're concentrating the pressure. And that's why you really like on this super stroke putter grip, this like area right here is like where your lasers of your palms are pushing, right? So like, that's got to be one of the most like common things people are messing up, right? It's just where they're pushing against the handle.
So I would say when you look at the super stroke putting grip here, when you think about the placement, like we've been talking about this whole episode, from pinky pad to index pad and notch placement, right? This doesn't change, okay? So if I place the putter grip and I have my perfect notch and it's more on like the side of the club like this, and I place it from index pad to pinky pad, it would look like this. So my my lead palm would be a little bit above the grip. But I've seen actually a lot of tour players do this because you're holding like this curl placement like firmly against that, and like all you're doing is this. So it's like it actually isn't bad. But you can go up to the palm, like, or the seam of the where the hand bisects, right? Between middle finger and the ring finger up to the palm.
Which
right?
we like a little bit better because it allows you to kind of push with that palm.
Well, the idea is that then my fingertips, though, are curled more up over the trail side of the club, right? So it's like if I do this, my fingertips are actually curled more over. So if I go back down to pinky pad, they're just curled against the side. And then this can be more pinched down like that. So again, it's just, do you want it really in your fingers?
What do you do?
I've actually fluctuated. It's weird. I almost just kind of started thinking about this, but I usually would use the trail palm like here. It wouldn't be like all the way up against it like this. It'd be like this. So that way, like if you look at my hand, there is no gap between my thumb, my like pad here and of my wrist, and then that's pretty much where I feel the most secure. And I do the same thing with my trail hand. So at my middle finger of my lead hand, I'm trying to place my trail palm against that, and then
when we talk about like this hook and like the notches and things like that, are you feeling the same like hooks where it just kind of rests right in those notches, or like how are you doing that? Because I'm very conscious of that with my trail hand.
I mean, the idea is that you got your notch, right?
Yes.
You have finger extension. Finger extension, like against the sides of the putter, is the secret, like finger and hand extension.
Or like the prayer grip feeling.
Correct.
Yes.
So basically, when you think about it, when you place this trail palm onto the side of the club, when you think about your notch, like as long as there's any, I mean, you don't even really have to have your notch on the putter. You can just curl your bottom 2 fingers or 3 fingers, and then all you have to do is this. Like this is not an action that needs to be happening, but what it gives you though, serving purpose, because I don't extend my index finger of my trail hand down the putter at all. I actually keep it curled, resting up against the middle finger, and then I just pinch like this. So I like getting my thumbs to basically touch like here, even though they're in like in a sense, you could say like a wacky grip format, because each V is going to each shoulder.
Right.
But we want that because it gives me like the best idea of like my forms being parallel and level and neutral. And then it just takes my hands, like pretty much out of it in a certain way. I'm using my hands, but like I'm not like getting wristy, we'll say, or like flicking, and it helps with tempo. Like this is how the whole tempo system works. Like you have to concentrate your pressures against the sides of the putter. Then once we get it, we can talk about how far back we go, keeping the alligator arms connected back and through because it's our pivot point for a putter.
Yes.
But with a tempo system to then control every distance that you have and knowing exactly how far back and through you go and at what
Which we're going to get into. Yeah, we're going to get into that for sure. Yeah. But so if we talk about like, when we talk about like the full swing and we talk about your claws needing to be educated, and that's why like our whole thing is like claw IQ, which is coming very soon. Where you really just, if you had like a brain of your claws and how educated they were, determine how well your like club did what it needed to do and how well your ball did what it did. We could do the same thing for putting and just educate people on like, okay, without the club, like what would it look like without the putter grip?
Yeah.
Like if I just said, hey, like where are you like actually pushing, like palm to palm? Like,
so it's basically like, I mean, the best way to understand it is from this format where it's like finger to finger, palm to palm. You get your notches. Everything's pressed together with like the inside part of your elbows. Instead of being locked, we're going to retract 45 degrees like we talk about, where like the triceps are resting more on top of your chest instead of like on the sides.
That's what gets the alligator.
That's really it. And even though it feels so like uncomfortable and weird, it honestly is the key. So from here, we basically just flex the fingertips and wrists away like this. And then, I mean, again, you can choose how you want to position your hands, but as long as you have this as your main function, then you curl your fingers. That's all you need for putting. Like every tour player does this. It's like here, some might be more here, but they're still concentrating the pressures to where the distance between the elbows doesn't really increase ever, because that's where then your arc will have problems. Like you'll have disconnection problems.
And you're pushing, like when we say like a 10, are you pushing like right here, like palm
you start
to
off
palm
the
at a
same
10?
way as in the full swing.
Got it.
You get your mold, right? Squeeze at a 10. Then go to 0. Because I will say, I've actually putted at like a 9-10 pressure before for weeks and had great success. I did have a really heavy putter at the time though. But the idea though is that I realized that it's like you want to squeeze to maximize like the formation, but then to keep the formation properly, you just have to then work on the tempo and the sequence in a sense.
So basically once you have your pressures activated, concentrate them like in the best way possible against the handle to like mold everything. And then once you create that mold, it's almost like you look at the when they do the stars at like Hollywood, when they like put their hands in the like clay, and then it like does that. So it's almost like we could do that with like putting, where we like kind of push the palms together, create the mold, and then now just let off. You've already created the mold. You don't have to like keep trying to create the mold. Like just create it.
And then just maintain it. That's it. Exactly. That's it. Instead of having to try to like, if you increase your grip pressure going back, you don't want to be like building up that tension and stuff. It's like, if anything, you should just breathe out and keep that harmonious like tune of like the perfect, like, the whole way.
The Walk of Fame. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
The LA
that's
thing.
right. I used to do the fingerprints as a kid. The whole thing. But it's like, but those are your claw prints.
Yeah, the claw prints. Yeah, I just had that visual when I was thinking about like how to concentrate pressure. Because it's like, once you concentrate it, just maintain it. Don't try to like make the print. You've already made your prints. You're done.
One day down the road, once we get this figured out for our members, we'll be able to get your own claw prints for like your normal golf club, and then for your putter, you could have them be like little statues at your house once you're clawified.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be like full qualification.
Right, exactly. You get your trophies. Really cool.
So, anything else?
No, I think that's it, man.
I think that's it. I think we're good. I think everybody's got a better understanding of how to really concentrate the pressure against the handle. I think the big things we just really want you to take away from today is just understand how to like activate these things like we're talking about with getting the claws, with the proper wrist and finger extension in the curl, the fingertips. Get your claws. And then once you're aware of like what's activated, then you can understand how to concentrate what's being activated against the cylinder or something bigger here. Just make sure it's super stroke. Make sure you're using training aids like Lagshot. Everything's linked in the bottom. Shout out iRange Sports too. They got some sick kind of tripod replacement things that are really cool, and we like their products a lot.
We'll utilize that for sure.
Yeah, we're going to use that a lot, especially with our lessons coming up. They're going to be holding up all of our iPads. And
there you go.
So, shout out to everybody that's supporting us. We're having a blast. I mean, we're just getting started though. Like once we get outside, this stuff's going to like really start escalating. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following us on all of our social medias. Shout out all of our sponsors and everybody.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.